The sound of heavy machinery echoed across the Sahel as the sun rose over Burkina Faso.
But it brought us even closer together and helped us understand why we must fight.
On a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning. But what was happening in the dusty plains near Ouagadougou was anything but ordinary. In a move that has left international development agencies scrambling and Western powers questioning their own narratives about African capability, Burkina Faso has just completed what many are calling the most audacious infrastructure project in West Africa's modern history. A massive 247-kilometre canal system that will transform the nation's agricultural landscape forever. What makes this achievement truly extraordinary isn't just the engineering feat itself, but how it was accomplished. Not a single dollar came from the International Monetary Fund. No USAID trucks rolled through the construction sites. The European Union's Development Fund wasn't touched. Instead, this monument to African ingenuity was built entirely through domestic resources, regional partnerships, and what President Ibrahim Traoré calls the power of African determination. The project, officially known as the Sahel Water Highway, connects the Muhun River in the west to the drought-prone eastern regions, creating a lifeline that will irrigate over 300,000 hectares of farmland. To put this in perspective, that's an area larger than Luxembourg, now capable of year-round agricultural production in a country where seasonal droughts have historically devastated crops and livelihoods. The genesis of this project traces back to the military government's rise to power in 2022, when Captain Ibrahim Traoré declared that Burkina Faso would chart its own course toward development. "We were tired of being told what we could and couldn't do by people who have never experienced our struggles," Traoré stated during the Canal's inauguration ceremony. "Every time we approached international lenders, they came with conditions that served their interests, not ours." The turning point came during a particularly brutal drought in 2023, when traditional donor countries offered emergency food aid but balked at funding long-term infrastructure solutions. "They wanted to give us fish for a day," explains Dr. Aminata Sawadogo, Burkina Faso's Minister of Infrastructure Development. "But when we asked them to help us build the nets to catch our own fish forever, suddenly there were too many conditions, too many environmental studies, too many bureaucratic hurdles." That's when the government made a decision that would reshape not just Burkina Faso, but potentially the entire continent's approach to development. They would build the canal themselves, using every resource at their disposal except foreign debt. The funding model was revolutionary in its simplicity and audacity. The government redirected funds that would have typically gone to debt servicing. Burkina Faso had been spending nearly 40% of its budget on foreign debt payments. They mobilized the nation's gold reserves, not by selling them to foreign markets, but by using them as collateral for domestic bonds that Burkinabe's citizens could purchase. They implemented what they called a patriotic development tax, a voluntary contribution system that saw everyone from market vendors to business executives contributing to the Canal Fund. Perhaps most remarkably, they turned to their neighbors for support in a way that bypassed traditional colonial relationships entirely. Mali contributed engineering expertise and heavy machinery. Ghana provided technical advisors who had experience with similar water management projects. Niger offered labor support and logistics coordination. It was Pan-Africanism in action, not in rhetoric. The engineering challenges were immense. The canal had to traverse 3 different geological zones, cross 7 major roads, and navigate complex tribal land ownership patterns. International experts had previously estimated that such a project would take at least 8 years and require over $2 billion in foreign financing. The Burkinabe engineers, working alongside their African counterparts, completed it in just 3.5 years for less than $800 million. The secret lay in what they call appropriate technology, using methods and materials that match their resources rather than trying to replicate Western mega projects. Instead of massive concrete channels throughout, they used a combination of lined earth channels, natural rock formations, and strategic concrete sections only where absolutely necessary. Local materials were prioritized. Stone quarries in the eastern region provided construction materials, while communities along the route contributed labor in exchange for guaranteed water access and employment in maintenance operations. The social impact has been immediate and transformative. Fatou Ouedraogo, a farmer from the village of Bulsa, describes the change. Before the canal, we could only farm during the rainy season, and even then, we never knew if the rains would come. My children would help me work the fields for 4 months, then we would all worry about food for the remaining 8 months. Now I farm year-round. My oldest daughter, instead of migrating to Côte d'Ivoire to work in cocoa fields, is now studying agricultural engineering at the university. The canal has created over 150,000 direct jobs, not counting the multiplier effect in related industries. Small-scale manufacturing has emerged along the canal route as communities now have reliable water for production processes. Cotton processing facilities, rice mills, and vegetable packaging operations have sprung up seemingly overnight. But perhaps the most significant impact has been psychological. For decades, African nations have been told that major infrastructure projects require foreign expertise, foreign funding, and foreign oversight. The Sahel Water Highway proves that narrative wrong in the most concrete way possible. We've shown that African problems can have African solutions, says engineering project manager Seydou Kone. Not every solution needs to come from Paris, London, or Washington. The international reaction has been fascinating to watch. Initial skepticism from development agencies has gradually shifted to grudging admiration, then to concern about what this might mean for the traditional aid industry. A leaked memo from a major international development organization expressed worry that the Burkina Faso model could become attractive to other African nations seeking to reduce dependency on traditional funding mechanisms. Indeed, the ripple effects are already being felt across the continent. Ghana has announced plans for a similar self-financed irrigation project. Senegal is exploring how to fund port expansion without Chinese loans or European development funds. Tanzania's president recently quoted Traore's famous statement that African dignity cannot be borrowed from foreign banks. The environmental implications of the project have also surprised critics. Because the canal was designed by people who live with the consequences of their decisions, environmental considerations were built in from the ground up, rather than added as afterthoughts to satisfy foreign environmental impact requirements. Fish ladders were incorporated to maintain river ecosystem health. Reforestation programs were implemented along the entire canal route. Solar panels power the water pumping stations, making the system carbon neutral. The economic numbers tell a remarkable story. Agricultural production in the canal-served regions has increased by 340% in just the first year of operation. Rice production alone has grown from 180,000 tons annually to over 500,000 tons. Burkina Faso, which has historically imported rice, is now on track to become a net exporter within 2 years. The project has also created what economists call backward linkages, demand for locally produced goods and services that might not have existed otherwise. Local steel production has increased to meet demand for canal infrastructure maintenance. A thriving spare parts manufacturing industry has emerged to service the water pumps and irrigation equipment. Even seemingly small details have had large impacts. The demand for work boots and safety equipment for canal workers has led to the establishment of 3 new manufacturing facilities. International observers are now studying the Burkina model intensively. What they're finding challenges many assumptions about development economics. The project's success rate has been higher than comparable internationally funded projects. completion time was faster, and local ownership and maintenance capabilities are stronger because the knowledge transfer happened horizontally between African engineers rather than vertically from foreign experts. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Canal project is what it represents for Africa's future relationship with the global economy. For centuries, the continent has been positioned as a recipient of aid, investment, and expertise from the developed world. The Sahel Water Highway demonstrates that this relationship doesn't have to be perpetual or one-sided. We're not anti-partnership, clarifies President Traore. We're pro-dignity. We welcome genuine partnerships where African nations are equal participants, not junior partners or aid recipients. But we've proven that we don't need permission to develop our own countries. The timing of this achievement is particularly significant given global economic uncertainty and the increasing questioning of traditional development models worldwide. As inflation affects donor countries and aid budgets face pressure, the Burkina Faso example offers a template for what African-led development might look like. Critics point out that Burkina Faso's approach required favorable conditions that might not exist elsewhere. Significant gold reserves, relatively flat terrain for canal construction, and a population already experienced with communal work projects. However, supporters argue that every African nation has unique advantages that could be mobilized similarly if the political will exists.
The Canal's success has also strengthened regional integration in unexpected ways. The collaboration between Burkina Faso, Mali, Ghana and Niger on this project has created institutional relationships that extend far beyond water management. Joint training programs for engineers, shared maintenance protocols and coordinated agricultural planning are creating the foundation for what some observers call practical Pan-Africanism. As the dust settles on this remarkable achievement, the question on everyone's mind is simple. If Burkina Faso can build a massive canal system without international loans or aid, what else can African nations accomplish when they believe in their own capabilities? The answer to that question might just reshape the continent's next chapter, one that's written not in the boardrooms of international development agencies, but in the fields and villages where the Sahel Water Highway now flows, carrying not just water, but the dreams of a continent finally ready to bet on itself.